Sir, in the last videos we covered very clearly, sir, all object-oriented features including typecasting, right? The next important concept, especially for the exam sake, of course it is also part of OOPS only, constructors. Are you getting what is the topic name, sir? Constructors. Very important for the exam. Minimum 3 to 4 questions you can expect from this area in our certification exam. Okay? Like, sir, now what is the need? What is the purpose of constructor? Just observe that, sir. Sir, I'm taking a class student. So just I'm taking a class student. For every student, compulsory name must be there, roll number must be there. For every student, if you consider any school, any college, name must be there, roll number must be required. That's fine. So I'm taking string name, int roll number, like this, right? String name into roll number, like I'm taking, sir. Sir, just observe here, public static void main method, public static void main method, string array args, public static void main string array args. Of course, inside student class, I'm taking main method. I'm creating first student object, student S1 is equal to new student. Student S1 is equal to new student. Just I'm creating a student object. Student S2 is equal to new student. I'm creating another student object. Okay, like just observe. I created 600 student objects. Assume that. So now observe. Sir, we created first student object, second student object, next 600 student object. Are you getting? First student, second student, and then 600th student object I'm trying to create, sir. Now the point here is, once we create student object, for every student object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created. Have you remembered? Instance variable, static variable, local variables, like somewhere in the last sessions we covered, right? For every student, compulsory, a separate copy of name and roll number will be created. Yes, here, name, next roll number. Here also, name, roll number. Sir, for this object also, name, roll number, like this. Are you getting? For every student object, a separate copy of name, roll number by default will be there. Sir, now the point here is, sir, we are just creating student object, but we are not performing initialization. We are not providing, we are not assigning the value of name. We are not assigning the value of roll number. So that's why whenever we are creating an object, for every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created, and for those instance variable, default values will be provided by JVM, sir. Sir, now what is the default value for name? Name is a string type, which is the default value null. Are you getting that? What is the default value for name? Name is the null. What is the default value for roll number? Roll number itself is, sir, do you know int, the default value is 0. Remember this one. Here also, name, null, default value 0. Name, null, roll number is the 0. Now observe, within a class, I have 600 student objects. Now I am approaching first object. Hey student, what is your name? What is your name? What is your roll number? Like, immediately first object is telling, Durga, my name is, sir, null, my roll number is 0. Oh, different object. Sir, I approach your second one. Array, what is about your name and roll number? My name is null, my roll number is 0. My name is null, roll number is 0. Within a class, all the 600 students having same name, null, same roll number, 0, meaningless. Are you getting that? That's why once we create an object, compulsory, we require to perform initialization for that object. Otherwise, that object is not in a position to respond properly, to provide service properly. Are you getting? So compulsory, we require to perform initialization. Then only that object creation is meaningful. Remember, sir, here I am taking name. First student name, Durga. Roll number 101. Second student name, some Ravi. Roll number 102. Third student name, some Shiva. Roll number 103. Like this. Now you can observe, array student, what is your name and roll number? Happily this person is telling, my name is Durga, my roll number 101. My name is Ravi, my roll number 102. My name is Shiva, my roll number 103. Something like, now these objects are in a position to respond properly. That's why once we create an object, compulsory, we require to perform initialization. If you are not performing initialization, that object is not in a position to respond properly. Everyone can able to understand, right? So initialization of an object. So initialization for instance variable is a very, very important task. You people should aware. Any doubt up to this, right? Okay, well. Now, who is the responsible to perform initialization? So, to perform initialization object, some special character must be required. Some special concept must be required. That special concept is nothing but constructor. Remember that. So, the purpose of constructors are constructor concept is specially designed to perform initialization of an object. Sir, after creating an object, immediately constructor is going to execute to perform initialization of an object. Sir, how to write constructor? How you can perform initialization for that? Just observe this one, sir. I will explain. Sir, just introduced the term constructor. Whenever we are using the word constructor, the main purpose of constructor is to perform initialization of an object. Sir, how to declare constructor? How it will perform initialization? How you can pass values? Just observe this one, sir. Sir, for the student, how many instance variables are there? Can you please tell? Same example, whatever I took. String name into roll number, like this, right? Now, constructor, I'm writing, sir. Have you observed? How you can write the constructor? Name of the class, name of the constructor must be matched. Remember, anyway we will discuss in detail next. This is just I'm writing constructor. So for how many variables I have to perform initialization? 2 variables, right? Now string name I'm taking, comma int roll number, like this I'm taking, sir. String name, comma into roll number. The person who is creating an object, he is going to pass this name and roll number. Now this dot name is equal to name, this dot roll number is equal to roll number, like. Are you getting? This dot name is equal to name, this dot roll number is equal to roll number. Sir, what is the meaning of all this? I will discuss, don't worry. So, how to write constructor? Sir, if you are having thousands of classes, for all classes, constructor rules are always the same. The name of the class, name of the constructor must be same. Whatever instance variables are there, you can provide the argument. Now, this dot name is this dot roll number is equal to roll number. Do you know? It is a fixed syntax, right? If you are working on IDEs, constructor will be generated automatically. We are not required to write each and every line. Remember, if you are using Eclipse, My Eclipse or Wizard, like in those IDEs, constructor will generate automatically. We can ask, can you please generate constructor? So immediately constructor will be generated. Constructor syntax is always fixed. But what is the meaning of that syntax? I will discuss. Sir, can I use the word? Is it constructor? Please respond. Is it constructor? Yes, friends. Sir, this one is constructor. Okay, well. Sir, I want to create first student object. Sir, constructor is also there. How I can create? Now, how to perform initialization? That part I will take care. Here, see this one. Here, student S1 is equal to new student. Student S1 is equal to new student. The name itself is Durga, I'm passing. What is the name I'm passing? Durga. Roll number 101, like this I'm passing, sir. Sir, take very special care. What will happen? What will happen? Here, one very, very important point you should take care, sir. The point here is, most of the people are going to feel, what is the purpose of constructor? The main purpose of constructor is to create object. To create object. No, it is the wrong point. The constructor job is to perform initialization, but not to create object. Okay, well, sir, in this line, there is a big story is going to be happen. That story you have to take care. Sir, here, student S1, can you please tell what I'm doing in this line? Hare, what I'm doing in this line? If any person is going to ask, sir, what activities we are doing? What activities we are doing in this line? Sir, this line, understanding is very important. We are creating student object. We are performing initialization. And for that we are using reference variable S1. So we are creating an object and perform initialization. Who is the responsible to create object? Most of the people are going to feel constructor is the responsible. No, new keyword is the responsible to create object. Are you getting? Whenever we are using new keyword, automatically constructor by default, automatically object by default will be created. Now because of this new, observe carefully, sir, object got created. What is the reference variable? S1 is the reference variable. Whenever this object got created, whenever we are creating an object, for every object, separate copy of instance variables will be created. Sir, name will be created, roll number will be created. Next, at the time of object creation, for every instance variable, JVM will provide default values. What is the default value for name? Null. What is the default value for roll number? 0. These many activities will be performed just because of new keyword. Are you getting? Whenever we are using new keyword, object created. Sir, every instance variable will be created. For every instance variable, JVM will provide default values. Everyone can able to understand, right? Now, up to this constructor not started. Up to this constructor not started, right? Now, who is the responsible? Okay, take a bit very, very special care. Now, once object created, up to this work completed, now constructor job will come in the picture. So, first object creation and then constructor. This is the constructor call. This is the constructor call. So, we are calling student constructor by passing Durga and 101 as the argument. Now this Durga will come to this variable, 101 will come to this variable. Sir, have you observed, right? Now this argument will become Durga and this value will become 101. Okay. So whenever we are creating an object, automatically the constructor will execute to perform initialization of an object. Okay, like, sir, inside constructor, this dot name. So on this object, this constructor is executing just like a method, on this object. So this constructor is executing this dot name. What is the meaning of this dot name? Current object name is equal to name, whatever the name you provided, right, Durga. Now this null replaced with Durga. Are you getting? This null replaced with Durga. Next, sir, in here, this dot roll number, this means what? Current object. Current object roll number. Current object roll number is equal to roll number. Whatever the value you passed, now this 0 replaced with 101. Getting the point? So this dot name, current object name is your provided name. Next, current object roll number is your provided roll number. Is it clear, right? Okay. So this is the job of constructor. Constructor providing values for our object instance variable. So to perform initialization, some concept must be required. That specially designed concept is nothing but one constructor. Are you able to understand the flow? Respond, man. Are you able to understand the flow? So can you please tell what the purpose of constructor? To create an object or to perform initialization of an object? What the answer? Not to create object, to perform initialization of an object. Who is the responsible to create object? New keyword is the responsible to create object. Next, the constructor job is to perform initialization of object. Here, do you know object will be created and the default values will be assigned with the new keyword. Now, because of this constructor call, automatically for these instance variables explicit our provided values will be initialized. Okay, well. So now I'm ready to go for another object. I'm ready to go for next object. Right? So let me create one more object. Student S2 is equal to new student. Student S2 is equal to new student of Ravi 1 or 2, like this I'm taking. Ravi 1 or 2. Again, new keyword is there. Because of new keyword, one more object will be created. S2, sir. S2. Reference variable S2. For every object, a separate copy of instance variables will be created. Sir, name and roll number will be created. Name and roll number will be created. Name is Durga. Name, JVM is always going to provide default values. What is the default value for name? Null. What is the default value for roll number? 0. So this total thing is happening because of this new keyword. Now, student of Ravi, 102. Okay. Sir, we are calling constructor. Sir, because of this, now name will become Ravi and roll number will become 102. Name will become Ravi, roll number will become 102. This dot name, current object. Sir, now which is the current object? S2. Sir, current object name is equal to name. Name means what? Ravi. Now, this null replaced with Ravi. Next, this dot roll number means current object roll number. Which is the current object? S2. Current object roll number is equal to roll number. What about its values? 102. Any doubt, friends? Are you in the position to understand? So, whenever we are creating an object, some piece of the code will be executed automatically to perform initialization of an object. This piece of code is nothing but constructor. Can you please tell what is the purpose of constructor? Respond. What is the purpose of constructor? To perform initialization of an object. Are you getting? Not to create object. Creation of object is going to take care by new keyword. To perform initialization of an object, constructor is the responsible. Is it clear? Everyone got basic idea? What is the constructor? Okay, that's all. Sir, now it is very clear what is the purpose of constructor. Next, just let me complete the previous program into executable form so that you people can get much clarity, right? Here, just observe that. Sir, class student, string name and roll number. These two are instance variables, right? And what is this part, sir? This is constructor. Okay, constructor. Like this I'm taking. Next, student S1 is equal to new student of Durga 101. What will happen? Sir, a new object got created. A new object got created. For the name and the roll number, JVM will provide default values first. Under these default values will be replaced with sir, these values because of constructor. You know the flow, right? Now, name is Durga and the roll number 101. Next, student S2 is equal to new student of Ravi, 102. Ravi, 102. Now, do you know, sir, just another object got created. S2 name will become Ravi and roll number will become 102. Okay, well, sir, how many objects we created? 2 objects. For every object, this constructor will be executed separately to perform initialization related to that object. Okay, well, sir, S1 dot name, S1 dot roll number. Sir, can you please tell S1 dot name Durga 101. Okay, what is the output we are going to get? S1, can you please tell your name? S1, can you please tell your roll number? So output by default will become, okay, Durga 101, like this. Sir, S2 dot name, S2 dot roll number. S2 dot name is Ravi. S2 dot roll number is 102. Like this we are going to get, sir. Sir, up to this, is there any doubt? Sir, is it clear for all of you? Right? Just my intention is, okay, let me execute, let me convert into executable program so that you people can feel more comfortable, right? Sir, how many objects created? 2. How many times constructor will execute? 2 times. Next, what is the role of constructor? To perform initialization. Like this, let me execute this code, sir. Observe carefully. Here the same example. These are the instance variable, but the important point, this one, sir. Sir, this is the constructor. Sir, what constructor is doing, sir? To perform initialization. Okay, like here. So, how many objects we are creating? 2 objects. 2 times constructor will execute. Now I'm asking, what is the S1 dot name, S1 dot roll number, S2 dot name, S2 dot roll number, right? Sir, what is the output we are going to get? Observe that a bit carefully. Java C student dot Java. The code compiles fine. Java student. Regarding Java student, what is the output, sir? Durga 101, Ravi 102, like this, right? Is it clear for all of you, right? How you can write the constructor? How, when it is going to be executed? What is the purpose? All the things are very clear for you people, right? Sir, now let me go for one more example. How many times constructor will execute? Of course, constructor job to perform initialization. When the constructor will execute? When the constructor will execute? After creating an object, immediately constructor will execute. Whenever you are using new operator, object will be created. After that, constructor will be executed immediately. Sir, how many times constructor will execute? For every object. For every object, constructor will be executed separately. Suppose you are creating 10 objects, right? 10 objects we are creating. How many times constructor will execute, sir? 10 times constructor will be executed. Remember this. Sir, can you please show with a small example? Is it really execute 10 times? Sir, it's how many objects you are creating. Based on that, those many number of times constructor will be executed. Sir, observe carefully, sir. Here I am taking, sir, class test. A small example. Observe carefully. Class test. Here, just constructor. Just the system.out.println. Is the constructor will execute or not? Sir, how to write a constructor? How to write a constructor? The name of the constructor, name of the class must be same. Name of the constructor, name of the class must be same. System.out.println constructor. Are you getting? System.out.println constructor, like. Sir, now public static void main method string array args. Public static void main string array args. Take very special care. I'm taking tester T1 is equal to new tester. Tester T1 is equal to new tester. Tester T2 is equal to new tester. Tester T2 is equal to new tester. Tester T3 is equal to new tester. Tester T3 is equal to new tester. Sir, can you please observe how many objects we created? 3 objects. Then how many times constructor will execute? Definitely 3 times will execute. For every object creation, constructor definitely will be executed. So what is the output by default we are going to get, sir? Constructor, like constructor, like how many times it's going to come, sir? 3 times it's going to come in the picture. So my intention of showing this one is, you have to familiar with constructor syntax. One thing, how many times constructor will execute? Sir, don't ask, sir, where is the initialization? No, I'm not performing any initialization. Just how many times it is executing, just that's my main objective, right? Let me execute this code. Have a look once, sir. I'm writing. Of course, this code is not already available. Let me take tester, sir. So what is the constructor? How to write? Sir, name of the constructor, name of the class must be same. System.out.println. Okay. Here I'm taking constructor like this, right? Okay. Sir, now here just let me create an object. Tester T1 is equal to new tester. tester T2, tester T3. Are you getting tester T1, T2, T3 like this, right? So 3 objects are created. Let me save this code. Sir, let me save this code as tester.java. As tester.java. I'm taking, this is the code, sir, tester.java. Let me compile and let me run this code. Sir, Java C tester.java. Okay, happily the code compiles fine. Sir, how many objects we created? 3. Obviously, constructor will execute how many times? 3 times. Now, Java test. Okay, constructor like 3 times got executed, right? So, suppose tomorrow, if I'm creating one more object, sir, T4 also, I'm creating an object. If I create T4 object, can you please observe? Happily the code compiles fine. What is the answer we are going to get? 4 times because total 4 objects we created, right? That's it. This is what you people should aware clearly, right? So what is constructor? How to write constructor? When the constructor will execute? What is the purpose of constructor? The basic idea. Is it clear for all of you, right? Sir, in the last videos we covered basic idea about constructors. For which purpose we can use constructor, when it will be executed, so like how many times it will be executed, like. Sir, now my question is, what are various rules we have to follow while writing constructor? There are multiple rules are there. For the exam, certification exam, it is a very, very important. Observe carefully, sir. Here, the first rule. What is the first rule, sir? Name of the constructor. Okay. I have class tester, sir. Listen carefully. In this class, I want to write a constructor. Can you please tell how I can write a constructor? What is the name I require to use? The first rule. Name of the constructor and the name of the class must be same. Are you getting? Name of the constructor and name of the class must be same. So now here compulsory we require to write like this. So if you are writing, if you are taking like this, now it will become constructor. The first rule already I covered, not required to keep much explanation. The name of the constructor, name of the class must be same. Simple rule, right? Now the second rule, sir. Very, very important. Very, very important, sir. What is the second rule? Yes. Here, what is the return type for the constructor? What is the return type for the constructor? Here, one small thing you should aware. When the constructor will execute, whenever we are creating an object, constructor will be executed automatically. Regarding whenever we are creating an object, constructor will be executed automatically. Automatically constructor will be executed. Okay, you know, right? You know. So now my doubt here is, it will be executed automatically. I'm not calling. Automatically it will be executed, right? Sir, if I'm calling, then I can expect some return type. But I'm not calling. JVM will execute automatically. That's why return type concept not applicable for constructors. Remember that. Return type concept not applicable for constructors. Even void also. Okay, by mistake void also. Sorry. For return type, such type of terminology not applicable for the constructors. Sir, here I am taking class test. Class test. Here I am writing the constructor, sir. Constructor. By mistake, I am declaring return type void, sir. By mistake, I am declaring as a void. Just now I told, can I declare? Is it possible to declare return type for the constructor? No, return type concept not applicable for constructor. By mistake, if you are taking return type, what will happen? Can you please tell what will happen? Compiler will give? Respond, man. Compiler will give left and right. No. By mistake, if you are taking return type for the constructor, compiler simply treated as a method but not constructor. But it's a method but not constructor. Okay, so now where is the proof? I will explain, don't worry about that. So compiler treated as method compiler treats it as a method, but not constructor. Where is the proof for that? Okay, sir. Now let me take here what I am taking. System.out.println. Sir, hello I am taking, sir. It may be method or it may be constructor. We will decide. Sir, now have a look once. Public static void main method I am taking, sir. String array args. Public static void main string array args. I am creating tester T1 is equal to new tester. Tester T2 is equal to new tester. Sir, how many objects I created? Two objects. If really it is the constructor, then 2 times hello will be printed to the console. But it's not a constructor. It's a method. That's why no output will be there. Even you created 2 objects, this is not executed because it is not constructor. It is a method. Remember, let me show this one. Here I'm taking void. I'm taking return type. I'm taking here just hello like this. I'm just taking, sir. Sir, how many objects I created, sir? 2 objects I created. Now, if really it is the constructor, 2 times it will be executed, 2 times hello will be printed to the console. But now, can you please cross check, sir, what will happen in this case? Happily the code compiles fine, happily the code runs fine. We never going to get any output because it is not going to be executed because it is not a constructor, it is a method. Remember, sir, if it is a method, when the method will execute? Whenever we are calling, automatically, whenever we are calling, then only it will execute. Sir, now I want to call this method. T1 dot tester. You are getting T1 dot tester. Now it will be executed. Let me do that. T1 dot tester. Sir, I'm calling a method. T1 dot tester. I'm calling a method. Now observe carefully. The code compiles fine. Now hello will be printed to the console. So if we are calling, then only it will be executed. Means it is not constructor, it is the method. Everyone can able to understand, right? So practical proof. Now the important point here is return type concept not applicable for constructors. By mistake, if you are trying to declare return type for the constructor, compiler simply treated as method but not constructor. Clear for all of you, right? Now I have one small doubt, sir. Is it possible to declare a method? Whose name exactly same as class name? Is it possible to declare a method whose name exactly same as class name? Why not? This is the best example. What is the name of this method? Tester. What is the name of the class? Tester. Are you getting what is the name of the class? Tester. Like this, right? Both are tester. Yes, it's possible, man. It is legal to have a method whose name exactly same as class name. But now my question is it recommended or not recommended? It is the stupid to have such type of methods. It's it's a not good programming practice because we are follow this convention, name of the class same as name of the constructor. We are following this convention for constructors. Why you are misusing that concept? Unnecessary, you are polluting the code. If I show this code to any third party person, then that person may feel confusion. Array return type declared seems to be constructor, the code may not compile. Some unnecessary problems are going to come in the picture. So even though we can take method name, the class name, even it is the legal, but it's not recommended. It's not a good programming practice. Clear for all of you, right? The first 2 rules related to constructor. What is the first rule? Name of the class, name of the constructor must be same. What is the second rule? Return type concept not applicable for constructor. By mistake, if you are trying to declare return type, it will become method but not constructor. Clear? Sir, up to this we covered 2 rules. Name of the constructor must be same as name of the class. Return type concept not applicable for constructor. Now the third point, observe carefully. Sir, for the constructor, which modifiers are allowed? Sir, I am declaring a constructor. Which modifiers are allowed for the constructor? Can I take constructor as the public? Can I take constructor as the default? Can I take constructor as the protected, final, static, abstract? Like you people should be aware, there are in Java almost around 12 modifiers are available. Which modifiers are applicable for constructors? Okay, please make sure the most important point, even for the interview room also. Do you know, it's a very important concept, sir. The point here is which modifiers are applicable for constructors? The only applicable modifiers. The only applicable modifiers for constructors are public. Public is allowed. Default is allowed. If you are not taking anything, it is the default. Public default. Protected is allowed. Protected is allowed. Private is also allowed. Regarding public is allowed, default is allowed, protected is allowed, private is also allowed, sir. The only applicable modifiers for the constructors are these four. By mistake, if you are taking any other like final, static, strict FP, abstract, native, immediately compiler will give left and right. Clear for all of it? So, which modifiers are applicable? Which modifiers are applicable for constructors? Okay, public, default, private, protected. Okay, like this one, sir. Have a look once, observe carefully, sir. Assume, if I remove this return type, it will become constructor only. Don't worry about this one. Sir, it is a constructor only. Perfectly, it is acceptable. Let me compile. Yes, valid, no problem at all. Valid, sir. Now, I'm taking this one as a public, acceptable, public, no doubt. Compiler happily compiles, fine. Instead of public, I'm taking private. Instead of public, I'm taking private. Yes, it is also valid. Sir, instead of private, I'm taking protected. It's also valid. Regarding it's also valid, sir. If I'm not taking anything, if you are not taking anything, by default it's the default. You know, by default it is the default. It is also valid. No problem at all. Sir, now I'm taking final. So can you please tell, is it possible to declare constructor with the final? Hey, respond. Is it possible to declare constructor with the final? No such type of possibility. So we are allowed to use public, protected, default, and then private. By mistake, final, static, synchronized, immediately error we are going to get. Observe that. Compile time error, right? Compile time error. Have you observed? Immediately, modifier final not allowed here. Modifier final not allowed here. Not only final, even static also not allowed. Even static also not allowed. Modifier static not allowed here. Even synchronized. Regarding synchronized also, yes, perfectly it is not allowed. Regarding synchronized, not allowed. So the important conclusion, what you people should aware, sir, the only applicable modifiers for constructors are public, default, protected, private. Do you know, if the constructor is public, sir, anywhere you can create an object. Regarding from anywhere you can create an object, either within the same package or outside package, anywhere, sir. If the constructor is the default, we can create object only within the same package, only within the current package. Sir, protected means you can create within the same package anywhere, but outside package only in child classes. You know protected modifier, right? Sir, now private, very important, sir. If we declare constructor as the private, what is the meaning of that? If we declare constructor as the private, what it means? Remember, we can create object only within that class only. Outside of the class, you can create an object. Do you know there is one beautiful concept is there in our Java, sir, singleton classes. Regarding to improve performance, singleton classes are there. For any Java class, if we are allowed to create only one object, such type of classes are called singleton classes. Internally, to implement singleton classes, private modifier we have to use for the constructors. Are you able to understand, right? So constructor can be private or not? Respond. Constructor can be private or not? Yes. Where private constructors are helpful while creating singleton classes. What is the singleton class? For any Java class, if we are allowed to create only one object, such type of classes are called singleton classes. Runtime class, next and after that date format, number format, there are multiple singleton classes are there. Of course, those things, so maybe in our advanced sessions we may discuss, but in your frameworks level, advanced Java level, you have to get much clarity. So please make sure you should aware. Clear, right? So these are only applicable modifiers for constructors. In the last videos we covered what is constructor, how to write constructor, what are various rules are there for the constructors. Now the next important concept, especially for the interview room, even for certification, right? There is one concept is there named with the default constructor. What is that concept name? Can you spell out? Default constructor. Okay, here listen. Sir, I'm writing class test. Observe very, very carefully that. Class test, that's all. Okay, this is my code. Can you please tell this class contains constructor or not? Yes, man, you have to tell. Are you seeing constructor? Yes or no? Hey, are you seeing constructor? This class contains constructor or not? What the answer you can able to tell? What the answer you can tell? Yes, yes, this class contains constructor. Yes, this class contains constructor. I can able to see that constructor. Are you seeing? I can able to see this constructor. Are you seeing? No, right? Okay, remember this. This class contains constructor. Who is going to add that constructor? Compiler will add this constructor. So, if you are not writing any constructor, sir, I didn't write any constructor, then the compiler feels that, array, this programmer is a very innocent person. He don't know about constructors like that. It is going to fail, and it is going to provide default constructor at the time of compilation. Regarding that's why automatically compiler will add which constructor, right? Default constructor. Compiler is always going to add, sir. Okay. Point number 1. Every class in Java, including abstract class, also contain constructor concept. Every class in Java, including abstract class, also contain constructor. So there is no chance of existing any class without having constructor. Okay, well. So now, if I'm not writing any constructor, compiler will always place default constructor. Who is the responsible to place a default constructor? Compiler, but not JVM. In some textbooks, in some websites, JVM is the responsible to generate default constructor. No, compiler is responsible to generate default constructor. Okay, well, sir, when the compiler will generate default constructor, is the compiler will always generate default constructor? No, no. If you are not writing at least one constructor, sir, I didn't write any constructor, sir, then compiler feels that this programmer is innocent person. We have to provide support like that. Compiler is going to write default constructor. Remember. Sir, now in this case, compiler will generate default constructor. Suppose I am taking, sir, here like this. Class test. Class test. Test of int I. Test of int I. Can you please tell? I wrote one constructor, sir. I wrote one constructor explicitly. Okay, well, in this case, compiler will generate default constructor or not? Either compiler will generate default constructor or not? Yes or no? Okay, compiler won't generate default constructor. The reason for that is, if you are writing at least one constructor, compiler feels that, oh, this programmer aware already constructors concept, we are not required to provide support. We are not required to provide the support like that compiler feels. In that case, compiler won't generate any default constructor. So, my question is the compiler will generate default constructor every time? No, no. only in particular situation, compiler will generate default constructor. What that particular situation? If your class doesn't contain at least one constructor, if you didn't write single constructor also, then only compiler will generate default constructor. Clear for all of it? So every class in Java should contain constructor concept. It may be default constructor or it may be your own constructor. It may be default constructor, it may be your own customizer constructor, right? Now I have one small doubt. Is there any chance of existing both the default constructor and the customizer constructor simultaneously? Within the same class, is there any chance of existing default constructor and the customizer constructor simultaneously? No. Because if you are writing any constructor, then the default constructor not applicable. If default constructor means you didn't write any constructor. That's why every class in Java contain constructor. It may be default constructor, it may be our own constructor, but not both simultaneously. Remember that. Clear for all of it, right? So who is the responsible to generate default constructor? Compiler. When the compiler will generate default constructor, if you are not writing at least one constructor, then only compiler will generate default constructor. Abstract class can contain constructor or not? Yes, every class in Java should compulsory contain constructor. Now I will explain what is the prototype of default constructor. What is the prototype, sir? Sir, now in this case, compiler will generate default constructor or not? Yes, because we didn't write any constructor, right? So the first point here is default constructor is always no arg constructor. Remember this one. So if the compiler is going to generate default constructor, it is always no arg constructor only. So the first point, it is always no arg constructor. Okay, it is always no arg constructor, right? But here don't get confused. Suppose I'm writing class tester. If I'm writing like this, is it a default constructor? Is it a default constructor? No. This is, even it is the no argument constructor, you wrote explicitly, that's why it is not default constructor. Which is called default constructor? The constructor which is generated by compiler. But you wrote this one, that's why it is not default constructor. So make sure default constructor is always no arg constructor, but every no arg constructor is not a default constructor. Most of the people are always going to feel, it is the default constructor. No, because you wrote this constructor, how it will become default constructor? Okay, well, so first rule is what? Default constructor is always what? No arg constructor. Okay, well. Second one, sir. Can you please tell what is the access modifier of the default constructor? What is the access modifier of default constructor? The access modifier of default constructor is always default. That's why the name default constructor. The access modifier of default constructor is always default. That's why the name default constructor. No, man. No. The access modifier of the default constructor same as class modifier. Regarding access modifier is same as class modifier. If the class is public, default constructor is also public. If the class is default, then it is also default. Remember this one. Now, if the class is final, it is also final. We'll give left and right because final is not applicable for the constructor. Remember this one. So the access modifier of the default constructor same as class modifier. Remember, sir, here access modifier. What is the second rule? Access modifier of default constructor. Default constructor same as class modifier. Same as class modifier, right? But make sure this rule is applicable only for public comma default. This rule is applicable only for public comma default. What is the reason for that? Is, sir, top level class cannot be private. Top level class cannot be protected. That's why private protected meaningless, because you can't declare top level class as private protected. Okay, like, but final static, this type of terminology is not applicable here. So default constructor access modifier same as class modifier. If the class is public, default constructor is also public. If the class is default constructor is also default. Is it clear for all of you, right? Second rule. Now third rule, sir. What's the third rule? Can you please tell if the default constructor contain any code? Respond. If the default constructor contain any code? Any code, yes or no? Yes or no? Very important. If the default constructor contain any code? Remember that default constructor contain only one line. Only one line. What is that line? Is super. Are you getting? What is that line, sir? Super. Default constructor contain only one line. What is that line, sir? Super. It is a no argument call. It is a no argument call to superclass constructor. It is a no argument call to superclass constructor. Okay. So parent class constructor will be executed because of this call. So do you know, whenever we are creating child class object, automatically parent class constructor will be executed. There is one rule is there. That rule we will discuss. Okay. Here super means it is a no argument call to parent class constructor. That's what you should aware. So total how many rules are there related to default constructor prototype? What the first rule, sir? It is always no argument constructor. Access modifier of default constructor same as class modifier. If the class is public, default constructor is the public. If the class is default, it is the default, right? Default constructor contain only one line. What is that line, sir? Super. It is a no argument call to superclass constructor. Any doubt? Are you in the position to understand this code? Okay, that's all. This is what you people should aware clearly, right? In the last video, we covered very clearly what is default constructor, what rules are there. Now, let me add some extra masala related to this default constructor, right? Observe carefully. Here, P's code, C's code. Okay, what is the P's code? Can you please tell? What is the P's code and the C's code? What is the meaning of P's code and C's code? Can you please guess? P's code means parent class code. C's code means child class code. No. P's code means programmer's code. Programmer, we are writing. C's code means compiler generated code. Observe, programmer's code, compiler generated code. Here I am taking class test. I am writing class test. Can you please tell, in this case, if the compiler will generate any code? Yes, because we are not writing any constructor, compiler will always generate default constructor. You know, right? So, what is the compiler generated code here is, sir, now, sir, here test like this. Access modifier of the default constructor same as class modifier. Class is the default, that's why it is the default. Next, the default constructor is always no arc constructor. Default constructor contain only one line. What is that line, sir? Super, like this. Are you getting? So this code generated by default, generated by compiler. This is called default constructor generated by compiler extra at the time of compilation. Okay, well. So now second scenario, right? This is the first one. Assume second. Sir, I am taking public class test. Public class test. Here just that's all. I am not writing any code. Public class test, curly brace open and close. Can you please tell, in this case, compiler will generate any code or not? Yes, in this case, compiler will generate any code or not? Yes. Definitely compiler will generate the code, because if you are not writing any constructor, compiler is always going to generate default constructor. That's why. Now here public class test, public class test, default constructor is always nor constructor, access modifier of the default constructor same as class modifier, default constructor contain only one line super. Okay, that's why here public test, it contain super like this, right? That's all. So this is the extra code generated by compiler. Okay, well, sir, now I'm taking, can you please observe, I'm taking class test. Now void test, like this I'm taking, sir. Class test, void test. Can you please confirm, in this case, either compiler will generate any code or not? Yes, compiler will generate default constructor, because it is not a constructor, it is a method. So method, if you declare return type for the constructor, it will become method but not constructor. So you didn't write any constructor. If you are not writing any constructor, compiler will always generate default constructor, right? Now class test, compiler will generate default constructor. Here test super like this. Next method anyway as it is will be there, void test like this, right? So which code generated by compiler? This is the extra code generated by compiler. Are you getting right? Okay, well, sir, now same some more cases I want to discuss. Here again piece code and C's code. Let me take the same table continuation, right? C's code. Now I'm taking class test, sir, programmer's code, class test. Here I'm taking test, okay, that's all. Test, that's it. Can you please tell, in this case, either compiler will generate any code? Ayo, very important. Can you please tell, either compiler will generate any code in this scenario? Very important conclusion, sir. Compiler won't generate default constructor because you wrote constructor explicitly. Okay, well, sir, compiler will do another extra activity. So programmer wrote constructor, then the compiler feels very happy because it's not required to generate default constructor, right? But the point here is the programmer wrote this constructor properly or not? Compiler is going to check. When we say that, okay, this constructor is said to be proper, the first line inside the constructor should be either super or this. Remember very carefully, sir. The first line inside constructor should be either super or this. Okay. If you are not writing anything, sir, compiler is always going to place super. Okay. To make your constructor proper, the first line inside every constructor should be either super or this, either super constructor call or this constructor call. What the meaning of that I will discuss. Super constructor call means super class constructor call. So if you are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place what? Super. Have you observed? Sir, you wrote constructor, but you didn't use either super or this. That's why compiler is always going to generate super for inside your constructor. Now class test. Here I'm taking test. Class test I'm taking. Inside that, compiler will generate one line. What is that line, sir? Super. Okay. Please make sure the most valuable, very important point. Let me repeat again. The first line inside every constructor should be either super call or this call. What is the meaning of this call? I will explain. Either super call or this call. If we are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place super. So this line generated by compiler. Remember, right? So now next case, right? Here I am taking class test I'm taking. Here test of int I. Test of int I. I'm writing my own constructor and I'm calling this, sir. This I'm calling. Now test, that's all. Like this I'm taking. Can you please tell in this case either compiler will generate any constructor or not, any code or not? Okay, that's what you people should aware. So in this case, compiler won't generate a default constructor. Up to that clarity, compiler never going to generate default constructor. The reason is because you wrote two constructors, right? Next, have you wrote these constructors proper way? When we say that constructor is said to be proper, the first line inside constructor should be either super or this. If you are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place super. Now, sir, first compiler will check both. Oh, compiler feels very happy because it is not required to generate default constructor. Okay, well. Now in this, now the compiler will check, is the first constructor proper or not? Yes, man. The first line, here we are taking this. This no argument means you are calling another constructor of the same class. This means current class constructor. Current class no argument constructor we are calling. Oh, it is there, sir. So first constructor proper. But second constructor, you are not writing anything. Either super or this, nothing is there. That's why compiler will place super. Remember, now after compilation, the code will become class test of int I, class test of int I. Now I'm taking this. Here only extra code generated by compiler is super. That's what you should aware. So the first line inside every constructor should be either super or this. If you are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place what? Super for this. Everyone can able to understand? Okay, well. Sir, now last case observe. Sir, I am writing class test of int I. Class test of int I. Here I am taking super also. Test of int I, super also, like this I am taking. Can you please confirm either code is going to compile or not? I mean, is either compiler will generate any code or not? Ayo, respond. Compiler won't generate any code. First won't generate default constructor because you wrote at least one constructor. I wrote at least one constructor, that's why compiler won't generate default constructor. Next, either programmer wrote this constructor properly or not. When we say that a constructor is said to be proper, the first line inside every constructor should be either super or this. Already super I wrote. Wow. Excellent programmer. He wrote everything appropriate. Compiler feels very happy. In this case, compiler never going to generate any code related to this constructor. Now after compilation also, the code is same. Are you getting? Test of int I, super as it is will be there, sir. Okay, that's it. Multiple scenarios about the default constructors, right? I hope all these things are documented clearly in our material. Just go through this so that you will get much clarity. Clear for all of you, right? Sir, from this discussion, you people should be aware when the compiler will generate default constructor, if you are not writing any constructor, at least one constructor also, if your class doesn't contain any constructor, then only compiler will generate default constructor. Next, what is the prototype of default constructor? It is always nowhere constructor, access modifier same as class modifier. It contains only one line, super. It is a call to parent class constructor. Okay, well. Next, when we say that constructor is said to be appropriate, proper, the first line inside every constructor should be either super or this. By mistake, if you are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place what? Super. Compiler will always place super for us. All the things are very clear for you people, right? That's all you people should be aware. Sir, in the last videos we covered about super under this. Have you remembered, right? So what compiler is going to generate, which code is going to generate with respect to the constructor, all the things with a small table with the 6 cases we discussed, right? Sir, but anyway from all those, only one line, very important line you have to aware. The first line inside constructor, must be either super or this. Are you getting? If you are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place super. Is it clear, right? Let me repeat again. Most valuable important point. The first line inside every constructor should be either super or this. If we are not writing anything, compiler is always going to place super for us. Okay? Yeah, the continuation of this, multiple cases I want to discuss so that you people can get much clarity about this. Sir, here case 1, observe carefully, sir. From every case you have some learning, some conclusion is there. That's why listen carefully. Here I am taking class test. Are you getting? Just observe class test. Here test constructor I am taking. Regarding what is this one? Constructor I am taking system.out.println constructor. System.out.println constructor, like this I am taking. Sir, now my next target is just I am taking super, sir. Super, that's all. Can you please tell, is it valid or invalid? Hey, respond very carefully. Think a bit very carefully and then respond. What is the, is it valid or not? I will ask the compiler. Compiler, can you please compile this code? Like this I will ask the compiler. So can you please confirm, is it valid or invalid? Remember, compiler will give left and right. What is the reason for that is, here super, where we are taking, in which line we are taking super keyword? In second line. Regarding super we are taking in second line. So we can take super or this only in the first line but not in second line of the constructor. Regarding but not in second line of constructor. This is the syntactical mistake what we have. Now what compile time error we are going to get? Okay, call to super must be first statement. Call to super must be first statement in constructor. This is the compile time error by default we are going to get, sir. Observe that. So inside a constructor you can use either super or this, but must be in the first line only. By mistake, if you are taking anywhere, immediately compile time error you are going to get. Are you getting that? Call to super must be first statement in constructor. This is the problem we are going to face. Now let me execute this code. Have a look once, sir, so that you people can feel more comfortable, right? Sir, I am taking class test. Forget about this main method. Now I am taking test. Within that, just system.out.println constructor, like this I am taking, sir. Constructor, like next here super, like this. That's all. Sir, this is the code I am taking. Let me save this code inside D:Durga classes. This is my current working directory, sir. D:Durga classes, like this I am taking. D:Durga classes in the test.java. Okay, that's it. So this is the code what I am taking. Let me compile this code. Java C test.java. Let me compile this code, sir. Java C test.java. immediately comparative method you are going to get. Yeah, how beautiful it is. Call to super must be first statement in constructor. Call to super must be first statement in constructor. Like this comparative method you are getting, right? So how I can solve this problem? Just very simple. You can take this super in the first line, automatically the code is going to be compiled, no problem at all. Have a look once. Here I am taking just the same super, the same super I am taking in the first line. If I can take in the first line, happily the code is going to compile, no problem at all. Are you in the position to understand, right? So the important conclusion what you people should aware. So call to super must be first statement in constructor. Sir, case 1 clear. Now let me go for case 2, sir. Observe very carefully, sir. Let me go for case 2. Now my second case here is very simple. I am taking class test. Okay. Here this is the test constructor. I am writing constructor. In that I am taking this I am taking, and then super I am taking this and super, followed by system.out.println. Okay, 1 minute, different error. So just let me make a small change. Super I am taking, and then this I am taking, super I am taking this, and then system.out.println constructor. Okay, constructor. Like I'm writing the code. Can you please tell if the code is going to compile or not? Please respond. Is this code is going to compile or not? Yes, friends. Immediately compiler will give left and right. What is the problem here is, listen. You can use a super or this only in the first line. Only in the first line. Okay. Sir, in the first line, super. Wow, wonderful, valid, no problem. But this, where you are taking this, sir? In the second line. You are getting this in the second line. In the second line, this is not allowed. If you want, you have to take this only in the first line. But in the first line, already super you took. That's why this, you can't. So means that we can use either super or this, that too in the first line only, but not both simultaneously. Because already you took super, you can't take this in the first line. If you are taking this, you can't take super in the first line. So we can use a super or this, okay, but not both simultaneously. By mistake, if you are trying to use both simultaneously, so first line condition is going to fail. Immediately error we are going to get. Sir, what is this error? Here just at this line. What is this error is? Call to this. Have you observed? Call to this must be first line, in constructor. Call to this must be first line in constructor. This is the error by default you are going to get. Are you getting right? So you can use either super or this, but not both simultaneously. By mistake, if you are trying to use both simultaneously, immediately comparative method you are going to get. Any doubt? Are you getting right? Let me execute this code. Observe carefully, sir. Here, super I am taking, and then this I am taking, sir. Super I am taking, this also I took. Have a look once, happily. Have you observed? Sir, call to this must be first statement inside constructor. So the conclusion, we can use either super or this, but not both simultaneously. By mistake, if you are trying to use both simultaneously, error we are going to get. So case 2 is very clear for you people, right? So now let me go for one more case. One more case, right? Case 3. What is the case 3 is? Very simple. Sir, very dangerous case also. Observe carefully. Here I am taking class test. Test I am taking. Here the term is public void M1, sir. Public void M1. Can you please tell what is this one? Is it a constructor or method? Method, normal method. Now I am taking super in the first line, and then just the system dot out dot println method like this I'm taking. Can you please tell, is it valid or invalid? Can you please confirm, is it valid or invalid? Yeah, that's what you people should be aware. If I can take like this, immediately compile time method you are going to get. What is the reason for that? Seems to be valid because method first line only like no compile time method we will get. What the reason is, we can use super or this only in constructor, but not inside a method. Have you observed our first compile time method? Have a look once. Call to super must be first statement. Observe this. Call to super must be first statement in constructor. The rule is very clear. In constructor. Okay. So means super under this you can use only inside constructor. Outside of the constructor, by mistake if you are using, immediately compile time method you are going to get. Clear for all of it? Sir, now is it a constructor or is it a method? Is it a constructor or is it a method? It is a method. Outside of the constructor we are using. That's why compile time method. Do you know what is that compile time method? Is again same error. Call to super must be. Call to super must be first statement. Call to super must be first statement in constructor. Call to super must be first statement in constructor. This is the compile time method we are going to get. All the people are in a position to understand clearly, right? Okay, sir, very dangerous, very important point, sir. Of course, at this point you can use sir either super or this inside constructor, but not outside of the constructor. Only in the first line, only one, but not both simultaneously. Sir, observe a bit very carefully. Clear for all of you, right? Next, I have one small doubt. Okay, what is the purpose of super? What it is doing? Super means you are calling super class constructor, no argument super class constructor directly. Sir, can you please call super class constructor? This means we are calling current class constructor. This means we are calling current class constructor another constructor. So you can call constructor directly from another constructor only, but not from a method. Regarding, you can call constructor directly from another constructor only, but not from the method. So if you want to call a constructor directly, compulsory you should be inside constructor only. Otherwise, we will get compile time error. Clear, right? So do you want me to execute this code? Yes, friends. Do you want me to execute this code? Let me show this one. Have a look once. Have a look. Here I'm taking. I'm taking public void m1 method. It is the m1 method. Just I'm taking system.out.println method I'm taking, sir. SOP of method I'm taking. Now take very special care about this one. So call to super must be first statement in constructor. Is it the same compile time error or not? Yes. You can use super or this, okay, only inside constructor, but not outside of the constructor, but not inside a method. By mistake inside a method, compile time error you are going to get. Are you in the position to understand, right? Sir, observe this. All the three cases are very clear. Sir, you can use super inside constructor only in the first line. If you are trying to use in any other line, compile time error. Next up, we can use either super or this, but not both simultaneously. By mistake, if you are using both simultaneously, compile time error you will get. Next, you can use super or this only inside constructor. If you are trying to use inside a method, immediately compile time error you are going to get. Now, terminology is the very clear for you. Sir, super constructor call, this constructor call, you require to take only inside constructor, that only in the first line, only one, but not both simultaneously. If you give it that, nothing will be there. Very important loophole for the exam. Please consider. Now super under this, let me talk a small conclusion. Have you observed, right? Super this. Sir, where we can use we can use only inside constructors. Have you observed? We can use only inside constructors. Only inside constructors. Okay, first point. Next, inside constructor, where we can use. Okay, you can use inside constructor, but inside constructor, where we can use, we should use only in first line. Observe, we should use only inside first line. Are you getting? So we can use only inside constructor, we should use only inside first line. Next, we can use only one, either super or this, but not both simultaneously. We can use only one, but not both simultaneously. Are you getting? But not both simultaneously. Sir, observe the point. We should use only inside constructor. Only inside constructor. Observe very carefully. Only inside constructor. We should use only in first line. We should use only in first line. By mistake, if you are using anywhere else, error. Next, we can use only one, either super or this, but not both simultaneously. Remember, I hope you are getting right. Sir, super and this, what rules are available with respect to these constructor calls? Clear? Sir, in the last video we covered how to call superclass constructor, how to call current class constructor by using super under this. I mean, what are various cases are there? We discussed it, right? Sir, now my next point. Sometimes, do you know, we may use just super under this, just like a keywords. Observe that very carefully, sir. Super under these keywords we are going to use. Sir, we discussed about super constructor call, this constructor call. Sir, these things are different, these things are different. These are constructor calls. To call superclass constructor, to call current class constructor. But what about this? Super under this, these are keywords in Java. Super keyword, this keyword to refer superclass instance members, current class instance members. Where these things are required? Very simple. Have a look once, sir. I have class P, sir. Parent class is there. I have one class, parent class is there. Sir, here I have string instance variable is there, like just parent variable, like this I am taking, sir. So parent class contain one instance variable. Yes. What is the value? Parent variable, like. Sir, now class C extends P I am taking. Class C extends P to the child class. This child class also contain string S is equal to child variable. Are you getting? String S is equal to child variable. I have right. Now the point is, take very special care. Now the point is, sir, I have one instance method is there, public void M1 method. M1 method. Inside M1, system.out.println of x, sir. Directly x. Which variable is going to come? Current class instance variable or parent class instance variable. Are you getting? By default, current class instance variable is always going to come. That's why what the outputs are child like this. If we are not using either super or this, sir, current class. Sir, I want to specify explicitly current class instance variable only. How you can? System.out.println this dot, sorry, not x, it is the s variable yes. Have you observed? Yes. Current class, sir, yes. Do you know this dot? Yes. Current class instance variable. Still now also child you are going to get. Whether we are using this or not, by default it is always going to refer current class variable only. Sir, I don't want current class variable. I don't want current class variable. I want a superclass variable. So if current class doesn't contain, in all cases superclass variable will come. But current class and superclass, both parent and child classes contain same variable. Then how you can specify explicitly, boss, I don't want child class variable, I want a superclass variable. How you can specify explicitly? For that we require to go for super keyword. Are you getting? System.out.println super dot yes boss, superclass instance variable I want. Now sir, parent variable by default will come. So take very special care. What is the purpose of this and super? This and super are keywords to refer superclass instance variable and current class instance variable. Superclass instance variable, current class instance variable, if you want to refer, then we should go for super under this. Sir, when usually required, if a parent and child classes contain a method or contain a variable with the same name, then we require to differentiate by using this and super. Clear, right? Sir, these are keywords. Sir, where you can use? You can use anywhere, no problem at all. Anywhere, no problem. But and you can use anywhere, any number of times, no restriction, right? But one small restriction is there, that part I will take care. Up to this is the clear, right? Sir, now create child class object. Child C is equal to new child. Now let me call C.M1. C.M1. Now happy this M1 is going to execute. Child parent by default will come. Sir, now let me execute this code. Observe carefully. Here the same I took, sir. String S is equal to parent variable. Okay. Next, even child class also contain, sir, child variable like this, right? Public void M1 SOP of S. By default, current class variable will come. Next, this dot X, now also current class variable. Super dot S, now super class variable by default will come in the picture. Now C is equal to new C dot M1. C is equal to new C dot M1. Happily